Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up, man?
You prefer Caleb or Teethbox?
Whichever is easiest for you. I'm not picky.
Caleb's fine.
Okay.
Would you like to get started today? Do you have like replays of examples or bad matchups, or do you not understand something, or?
Well, really, I just need a fundamental cornerstone to work off of for mech because I used to do bio and it was fine, but then I would get wrapped up in like first attack versus protoss or something like that. But I just got tired of being all in and everything, and I was always way more positional with like my widow mines and stuff like that. And I was about to just say, I was about to just quit actually, because I threatened my team I was gonna quit for a while, and they were like, do what you need to do. And then I saw you play, and I was like, oh my god, this is the answer. Like, this is way more the way I think. But I just don't know how to go about getting to that point. So like, maybe some builds and maybe some like unit compositions and some thought processes when you're engaging each of the races. Like just a super fast breakdown maybe on each of the races.
Alright, sounds good. Could you whisper me in game? Do you have me added?
I do not.
If you go to... I'm in a few channels, like the forum posters, or Team Liquid, that channel, I'm in there, or HTOMario's factory.
Yeah, I'll just do this. I'll send it to you on the Skype.
That works.
Whoa, all caps. I've been curious for a long time. What does the HTO stand for?
HTO was... I don't see you online, by the way. Are you torn?
I'm sorry?
Never mind. HTO was an old clan tag that I just really liked the sound of and combination of my name. I can't actually add you. It's not letting me. So if you could... Oh, you have it?
I just rolled into the factory.
Oh, there you are.
Yep, me. Alright. Very cool.
Alright, so let's take a look at your matchups, see where you probably could use the most detail in.
TVP I've been finding really difficult to get started with mech.
Okay.
TVZ I don't really find it too much of a problem, but I haven't been doing too many 1v1s with mech because I don't really
know where to start off.
Yeah, like I saw some of your guides, and it was hard to tell which patch they were during. For like whether the Hellbats were nerfed or whether it was whether there was different things to be concerned about in terms of like unit buffs and nerfs and stuff like that. So I went with the generic TVZ build that you have, which is the the 12, basically the 2 Marine reactor into 1 factory for the siege tank, with the quick expand and then the quick third with the bunker at the low ground, and then that just kind of starts you off for the framework. But I don't have any idea what I'm doing for TVD, and I have less of an idea of what I'm doing for TVP. So
okay, so let's take a look at... I should have... Looking for a good one real fast.
Okay.
There's one I have in mind, but I can't seem to find it.
No worries.
Alright, we can start off with the TVP. So all my TVPs recently I've been experimenting a lot with lately. But
I saw that.
Yeah, so I'm trying to...
a lot.
Yeah. I'm trying to find like the most optimal things, but there are some key things that I found that are consistent, so we can go over those, and you can also kind of like branch over that.
Okay.
So the things that I know for sure, I am red in this situation, so this is against a Protoss player. So the things I know for sure is that the wall-off isn't necessary, but if they proxy, so if it's a 2-player map, a wall-off will help you a lot against proxy, but it will hurt you against mothership cores, stalkers, early pressures with 1 gas. So if you scout the Protoss player and you see 1 gas, and they haven't taken their expansion very fast, and they're like you think they're gonna rally units to your base, it's better off to just replace the barracks and swap it with a bunker.
Okay.
because that will delay them from coming up the ramp. They can take pot shots at your depots, but just be careful about repairing it. You can go up to like a siege tank and then just defend it real easy, no problem expanding your base. Another thing is you don't have to expand outside of your base until you're completely saturated in your main. If you're not 100% feel safe, do not take the expansion because you might just get crushed. Another good thing to note is that every time a Protoss player takes an expansion, 90% of the time you can take yours, even though it looks like you can't really defend it, you're not 100% sure. If he takes his, you're investing about the same amount of time. You don't always have to move it out, but
just drop one down.
Yeah, drop one down. So if they like double expand and they're being really weird, you can throw down 2 command centers. Also, then your third can be a planetary fortress. But for every planetary fortress you have, ultimately you want to also get an orbital command just for the mule. And with scans, planetary fortresses are good. So like the reason why your third can be a planetary, and the reason why I've been favoring that in Terran against Zerg, I get two extra command centers, which is something that I've tweaked since the daily. You saw that in one of the games. And then the others I did normal, so I was kind of like testing back and forth there, and I found out that it's a lot easier to defend your third bases, especially with maps like Whirlwind, with a planetary, to where you don't have to have all your units right there. It makes it a lot easier for Zealot run-bys, Zergling run-bys, things like that. So if you do that, just build up your infrastructure, and then when you go grab your fourth base, maybe drop 2 command centers, one at your fourth for another planetary, and then one in base for an orbital. So you have like 4 bases but 3 orbital commands.
Right.
You never want more planetary fortresses than you have orbitals. Your goal is to try to stay as close as you can.
Right, okay.
Which, you can also put them in like key positions.
To defend more than one point.
Yeah, and as an example, like on this map, you would take this base if you wanted it to be an orbital command, but if you wanted it to be a planetary, you would take this base.
Right.
Because it's more exposed, and it'll be easier to defend because you already have a planetary. And that makes the easy base where you can make it an orbital command. Another few things constant is you need enough Marines at a certain stage to survive against the Oracle, or you need enough Widow Mines, or you need a Viking, or you need turrets. So, if you aren't getting a reactor early on your barracks, more often than not you're either going to have to drop an engineering bay, which is good. You can put 1 turret in your mineral line, you can put 1 out front, and that makes you safe against Dark Templar. So you can see the bunker here. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, and I expanded my own base. So with what I'm testing in these builds, they're all kind of the same rules. I'm making sure I don't die to any pokes at the front, which is why I put down the bunker. I'm expanding in my base. I'm not concerned about taking out. I put down the double gas. I'm not sure how I feel about the specific build yet, but it all leads up kind of to the same thing. I think that the best build so far that I've found is where you get your reactor on 13 minutes, or your refinery, and then you get the reactor right away before any units, and that allows you to pump out so many Marines that you can just automatically counter-block a lot of all-ins, but it delays your expo a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, keep in mind, I am in silver, like, low gold, so anything that'll just keep me safe until I can, safe to deter enough of early game cheese just to kind of get going. I don't typically die to something stupid like Proxy Zealot or any of that. I usually die against Protoss to, like, not even Blink Stalker all in, like the infamous 3-gate, like, it's like a 4-gate, but it's quicker, and they just come in with like 3 Zealots and then they just keep reinforcing. I don't even think Warp Gate is researched. It's really dumb.
The best thing for that is that for every 3 Marines you have, you can just throw down a bunker.
Okay.
No more than 3 bunkers, if you're afraid. You can go up to 3 bunkers at your front wall.
Sure.
I've done it before, off of 2 base, and I only do it really when I go for like 12 Marines, and then I go into like Banshee Harass or something like that. So I know I'm not going to have too much defending back. I'm going to have like a few tanks and 3 bunkers, and the rest of the mineral is going to go into an expansion.
Right.
Your goal is always to expand before the Protoss.
Okay.
Or at least have the opportunity to. You are playing kind of defensive, so you can either play two styles. You can play super aggressive. You can not take the third base. You can go up to 4 factories. You can throw down an armory, and you're going to push out with making 4 Hellbats at a time and 2 siege tanks and maybe 1 Viking. That's a timing push. You can kill him like that, and it'll win you a lot of games in silver. If you want to play it safer and more macro orientated, what you would do is go up to like 2 or 3 factories, and then you would throw down a 3rd command center. Your goal is to have the 3rd command center before you get both gas geysers at your natural. So you can get the 3rd, but you don't want the 4th until you have that command center.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a choice. Do you want to end the game fast? You don't get the 3rd command center. If you do, if you want to end the game fast, you get the 3rd command center. If you want to delay and play a macro game and kind of feel out the build and build it up like I love to, you just don't do that.
I definitely do, but I don't feel very safe against the cheesy Protosses that I end up going against often.
Marine Siege Tank Viking will hold almost anything as long as you're behind a wall.
Okay.
So, like, your ideal thing at the front would be like 1 bunker, 2 supply depots on either side, another bunker behind it, and then behind that bunker, you would have like 2 or 3 siege tanks, and that's pretty damn safe. And then if they go like Colossi or War Prism, you always want 2 Vikings if you don't get missile turrets. You do want 1 turret or a Raven up front. I'm starting to think that for against heavy aggressive, like high tier level players, you want the missile turret. But the Raven isn't bad because a lot of low players won't have the macro to just bust you.
That's true. That's true.
So you could just throw down more bunkers against them, and then expand again inside of your base. Sneaking expos is a great thing in lower leagues. They don't like to scout anything but what they will expect. So like if I was in this position, I could take a base up here.
Right.
Or down here as my 3rd command center, and then just mule outside. Its biggest goal would be to give me gas and mule.
Right. Just getting gas and just muling from it and keep all the SCVs in-house in case they destroy it or something.
Yep.
Pretty much.
So from here, I am vulnerable to the Oracle, but I know it's expanded. If I what's it called? If I didn't see an expansion, which we can see that I did, I would have gone for the engineering bay a lot sooner, probably like 4 minutes and 50 seconds or some crap like that, and then not gotten the reactor. I would have kept pumping out Marines, so I had 6 Marines to thwart away an Oracle. You want at least 6 Marines when you think an Oracle is going to come.
Right, that's like the general rule, 6.
Yep. 8 if you can help it, because then you will lose a lot less Marines. So I feel safe, I check the middle with my Reaper, I take the expansion. Kind of a strange opener I did. And then you can see there's the tech lab, so I'm thinking siege tank, Marine.
Yeah.
And then there's the 2 gas geysers, the 3rd is up. I think I end up losing this game, but it's kind of like showing you the general things.
Sure.
I end up skipping the starport. I'm actually a really big fan of getting the starport before the other 2 factories. So the logic is kind of like, okay, my push is going to come sooner, and my robust army is going to be stronger, but I'm giving up defense against Stargate play and Warp Prism play. That's one of the reasons why you want the Vikings to thwart away Warp Prisms.
Right.
They're pretty fast and they're hard to catch up to.
That's definitely one of the things that the players I end up going against use. They use Warp Prisms that can warp in like DTs or do something really annoying.
Yeah, so what you would want is instead of throwing down 2 factories, you just throw down a starport and then your 2 factories a little bit later in your army. So you can get a Viking, yeah. So, but I go up to 4 factories here, and then I go up to double reactor. So you almost always want double reactor, double tech lab. Here's the 2nd bunker, as I mentioned. Closing off the wall, getting a missile turrets by the mineral lines in case of Dark Templar.
Right.
Building depots around the edge. Here's a Warp Prism. That thing was annoying.
Yeah, you'll never see this in the lower leagues.
It was good harass.
Yeah, it's usually some sort of crazy doom drop that I end up going against where they drop like 4 Dark Templar and warp in another 4 Dark Templar, but that comes much, much later.
Yeah. Um, you do want, so your general composition is going to be lots of Hellbats.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, that's something I needed to know for sure.
Hellbats is your biggest thing. That's why you have 2 reactors. You will have more Hellbats than any other unit. You do want 1 or 2 Thors. They're great if they make like a Void Ray switch. They have a lot of splash damage. You can go up to 3 or 4. If they go pure Void Ray, just get a lot of Thors. They hard counter Void Ray in their splash mode. Pretty good.
Is it because of the Immortals don't do extra damage to the Hellbats?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons you want them, yeah. So, like, Zealot remaxes aren't a problem, and then the only thing that can really kill the Hellbat is Colossi, or Storm, or Archon, and eventually, by the time they get that, you'll be teching around Ghosts anyway, so you eliminate 2 of those, and you should be making some Vikings at the start, so they help against Colossi.
Okay.
But the Hellbats are, yeah, they're a pretty big meat shield against the Mortals. They're also pretty mobile. They don't take as long to adjust and time up. Most of your army composition should be Vikings. I have also found that the best way to combat Protoss Air, and I've been testing this the last few days. I don't know if you tuned in this morning or last night, but I faced a lot of 2 or 3 base Tempest play.
I saw you against Noni, or pseudo Noni, or whatever. Like it wasn't quite Noni, or he claimed it wasn't Noni.
Yeah.
You claimed that he played like him.
This was before. This was after Noni, so I was struggling a lot with carriers and against him, or this pseudo Noni. I'm not sure if it was or it wasn't him, but carriers are really, they're actually a bigger problem than Tempests. They're actually like the biggest thing you can make is Protoss to kill Terran armies, and I found that the best way to kill them was Vikings. Focus Fire Vikings. I do probably. Those are probably your best odds. One of the reasons of being is that they're much easier to produce, and you can outmass them. So whenever I scout an air switch on 2 or 3 bases, what I do is get up to 2 starports on reactors and pump out 4 Vikings at a time and get upgrades. So my goal is always to have 1 more starport with a reactor than they have a Stargate, and then I can have like an extra starport making Ravens. And then the Ravens will be like for a Hunter-Seeker missile or a point defense drone if they make some Tempests or something like that. Even if they have carriers, you know, the point defense drone doesn't stop against them. But if they get some stalkers, then 2 or 3 point defense drones actually can help change the tide of a battle.
Yeah, no kidding.
So you can see I get 2 Thors here. I was playing around more with Thor Hellbat in this game. This is one from like 2 or 3 days ago before I switched it back up to heavy tank. I don't quite remember the outcome of this, but you can see my general thought process.
Oh yeah.
So there's a starport with a reactor that's finished up. I think I play this one ghostless to see how it works out. It did not work very well. So your general ID on 3 base, so like this is your ideal composition on 3, or your tech structures on 3 base. So on 2 base you can go up to 2 tech labs, 2 reactors, and then a starport. You don't need an add-on on the starport when you're on 2 base. When you're on 3 base, you want to throw down the add-on, and you can make 1 ghost at a time from the barracks. So it's kind of like adding another 2 unit structures, because you're using the barracks for the ghost, and you're getting a second Viking or medevac at a time. If they're not going for air or colossi, you'll be making medevacs.
Okay.
And that way you'll start building up your ghost count a little early. And then once you're on 3 base, you can go up to, you can make a choice, you can go up to 5 factories. And, okay, so you want 5 factories, 1 starport, and then 2 barracks. Or you can go 6 factories, 1 starport, and 1 barracks. So you make more factory units, but you don't have quite as many ghosts. You want more ghosts, the heavier he's going into like Archon Immortal.
Right.
But you also want a decent amount of siege tanks. So if you're going for 2 ghosts at a time, you want to go up to 3 tech labs. But if you're going for 1 ghost at a time, you can go up to 3 tech labs and 3 reactors. Because if they're not dumping everything into Immortal Archon, it's going to be probably something like Immortal Zealot, so you have a lot more Hellbats to deal with that.
Right. Okay.
So that's a bit of a trade-off. I'm not 100% sure which one is entirely better, but I found that that's worked the best so far?
Probably at my league.
Since their macro is bad, I think it would be more so the battle. So maybe an extra ghost would help a lot more.
Right. Take away all their shields or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you see a War Prism, you gotta have Vikings flying around or get a turret ring. I'm starting to think that I don't quite need this many turrets, but I'm not 100% sure. Right. One of the reasons why I lost this game, and I'm starting to remember a bit of it, is that I don't drop a 4th command center in time. Like, right around now, I should be dropping a 4th command center to get ready to take it as another base, you know?
Right.
And I flat out tested skipping the rest of the factories and go up to 3 barracks. But you can see that I keep about the same number of production facilities.
Right.
Because he's going a lot of High Templar, Archon, Immortal. So there's like 3 things to EMP. So 3 ghosts. A lot of them won't get Storm.
Oh, yeah.
The Thors help quite a bit in this situation. Thor Hellbat is actually pretty good against this specific unit composition, you know, Archon Immortal. But it's not very good against Mass Immortal.
Looking at their army, and your army, and like just knowing, or just imagining what would be the difference in the lower leagues, like you would have outright crushed their army, because they would have just A-moved and stormed all the Thors, and it wouldn't have done anything.
Yeah. In this situation, also, if you saw that, or if you see now when I mentioned I should have dropped the other command center earlier, it would have been done about this time. So is his 4th base, and I'm running out of places to mine, so I really should have transferred, so I missed my 4th base timing. You pretty much want to drop your 4th place relatively fast after you drop your 3rd.
Just like as soon as you're moving the 3rd out, just drop a 4th, just in case.
If you can afford it, yeah. You want to build it in a safe spot and then move it over shortly after. It's going to be a planetary or an orbital, depending on what your 3rd was.
Right.
And then you should technically go for double upgrades. You can go off of 1 armory. If you're winning the battles really well, it doesn't matter. But if the battles are really close, the upgrades will help a lot. Especially if he's very zealot based. It won't help too much against immortals, but it will help a lot against heavy zealots. So if you see that he's using like heavy zealot Archon, or is it Zealot Immortal? You want to get the armor upgrade too.
Well, a lot of the one game, because I did one game in the knobs against a Platinum Protoss player, and he overreacted really heavily and just like spammed out like 20 mortals. And I tried to go for air tech, but it was too late.
Yeah. That's heavily countered by pretty much mass siege tank Hellbat Ghost Medevac. You'll beat it every time. As long as you're sieged and in good position, yeah. Siege tanks, they're pretty good at killing immortals with their shields off. You have plenty of ghosts to take away the shields. You have mass Hellbats, and since the Hellbats don't take a lot of damage from immortals, the Medevacs will really help keep them alive. So it really busts you up, and your goal is just to kind of funnel them somewhere, not get caught out in the open.
Since the Protoss won't understand. It just seems like the Protoss at the lower leagues at least just don't understand. They see a mech player and think, oh, I'll just make up a zillion immortals and I'll be fine.
Yeah, a great way to counter that is to be honestly just go up to like 5 factories and, or 6 factories even on 3 base, 1 barracks and a starport, and pump out Ghost Viking Hellbat Siege Tank, and you'll or instead of the Viking the Immortal if they don't get anything for the Vikings to shoot.
Alright, one more time, what's that? That's 3 barracks.
Oh no, so if they're just playing like a normal ground composition in a standard game, your best bet is probably just to go 6 factories, 1 barrack, maybe even 2 barracks if you're on like 3 or 4 base, and then 1 starport to pump out Vikings or Medevacs depending on what you need. And then if they go for like Immortal Archon, you can throw down another barracks, go up to 2 or 3, and then if they go for Stargate, you can go up to 2 or 3 starports. It just depends on what tech they choose.
Sure.
But your goal is to always leapfrog into battle. You know, get close, but knowing that, like, get to the point where you can go, okay, if I siege now, will he reach me before he's in range? So you got to siege before he starts moving towards you and can be in range of your siege tank. So you got to kind of siege prematurely.
I'm gonna test the siege tank medevac Hellbat Ghost theory, and then try to see if I can push him into air and then just do Vikings out the wazoo and see what happens.
Yep.
Most players will probably just end up like just pumping immortals like it's like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
At least at silver.
And I would highly say that, like, this is pretty much most of what TVP is right now. This is pretty much like, as long as you keep that in mind, you will win most of your games. You'll really start improving. It's kind of like you won't really need too much more in depth. Just don't panic if he's mass expanding. Just take your one base at a time if you need to. And if you have retained of the map and he's doing a lot of counterattacks, just expand towards him. Like, for example, if he's counterattacking, if he's expanding in this area, so I want this expo.
Right.
And then, like, if once I have that expo, maybe put, like, a planetary fortress here.
Right. Okay.
Alright.
Alright, that clears that up a lot.
That's good. That'll be it for TVP. Give me 1 second, alright? I'm sure you can hear my child.
No worries, man.
Okay, I'll be right back. Sweetness. Sorry about that, I'm back. I don't know which one of these TVT replays is a good one.
Because I mean, I could do like marine tank and then just do like a massive push, since I have always been better at positioning my siege tanks and marine tank, and I feel like that would probably win me a lot of games. But that's not quite mech. That's sort of like a really weak excuse for mech. It's like half and half.
Marine tank is, I feel, stronger than mech. I thoroughly enjoy playing it. I wish I could play it instead of mech, but I kind of just want to, you know, this is the whole thing, I want to play mech instead.
Yeah, me too, I understand. I hate, dude, bio, it's even, I have like nightmares where, it sounds dumb, but I'll be like running away from a bunch of hydralisks in my medevacs, and they'll like snipe down my last two medevacs full with marines. Bio has just traumatized me.
Yeah. In TVT, you do not need to wall off unless you're expecting a proxy. I do it here.
Okay.
You know, I don't really have a good reason, except for I guess it's easier to deny Reapers, and I don't want them to come up the ramp, so I can keep my Marines off to the sides, which is why.
I was wall off just so that I have vision of what's going on downstairs.
I usually just put at least a supply depot down there. And so in TVT, I've been going a lot of 1-1-1. I've decided that you can go for one barracks, delay your gas a little bit, get a command center, and then the factory, so you can get your gas at like 14 or 15, and pump off Marines off of one barracks. Then you can get one gas or two gas, depending on what you want after you get your command center. Or if you go 2 gas, you want to get it after your command center. If you go 1 gas, you want to get it slightly before your command center. You don't need the add-on on the barracks at the start, as long as you make Marine, or as long as you make Tank Viking, and provide yourself an opportunity to stop Banshees. So, like, you go into Raven, or you go into Viking Turret. And you don't need missile turrets until you're on 2 base, and you don't need missile turrets at each base. You just need it to cover 1 mineral line if you have a Raven, because then you can have the Raven sitting in the other mineral line.
Right, okay.
But if you move out, you know, build the turret. Usually your goal is to take a command center shortly after you take your 2nd base. If you feel safe, you know, take a 3rd command center. It's a good way to kind of pull ahead. So in this game, I get a Raven, and then a barracks, and a Widowmine, and then I take my expansion. I completely forgot that I did this specific build, and I couldn't remember what it was this morning, and I wanted to do it again. But now, I see it. So this is okay too. So what you get in here is you get a fast Widow Mine to help stop against attacks. You get your Banshee really fast. You have enough Marines to take out or you get your Raven really fast. You have enough Marines to take out a Banshee. You produce two Marines at a time. You can drop a Tech Lab because you got double gas on your factory. And you can either go for like straight into another Banshee, and then you can go for 2 Widow Mines and go into so it's all about gas management. I get a Widow Mine because I'm going for the Banshee, but if I was going for the Viking, I'd swap the add-ons back and make Viking Siege Tank Marine. But by going for the Banshee, I need to delay my Siege Tank production because I don't quite have enough gas yet. I'm still recovering from making the Raven.
This is a lot of information. I'm gonna have to rewatch this. Alright,
so there's the Tech Lab. Here's the... I know he's coming, so I place a Widow Mine down below, kind of close by the ramp.
Oh, I saw this. I saw this game. You stuffed this guy so hard.
Yeah. So I have to make my own siege tank, and I'm kind of wondering how do I engage this. Well, 2 auto turrets can draw a lot of fire on the Raven from up top. And I'm making the siege tank and the expansion, and I sent some SCVs just to be safe, because I know I'm grabbing my expansion. This is an early attack. So the SCVs drew a lot of fire. It's not really bad. If you know he doesn't have a command center and you're building one, it's not bad to snatch an SCV or 2. And here's the Viking. So now I'm going back into Marine Siege Tank Viking. This is the other command center. I scan his expo. Do you have an expo there? No, you do not. And I see nothing on his factory, but I don't really pay attention to that. Send my my Banshee out, and just keep the rest of my force here to defend. And then I can just crush him from here, like with this attack. Yeah, so that's pretty much a safe opening you can do. One of the things that I found is you want to have a way. So your focus of the original of your opener is to have a way to survive against cheese and to survive against the Banshee. And I found that Marine Tank Viking is the best way to do that. Having a Raven is not that bad. I really liked the build that I did here, so I'm probably going to test that more. Yeah, or you can open up Marine, Raven, Widow Mine, up to 2 Widow Mines max. And then you can put a Widow Mine in either mineral line, and then when you get a missile turret, you can put it like in the middle, and then if they come close to your mineral line, as long as they have sight, with a Banshee, so if the Banshee comes to attack your mineral line, they're on the edge of your minerals, and you have a turret there, and they're trying to avoid the turret, well, the Widow Mine is on the edge, and it's most likely going to hit it if he's too close. So that covers a lot more space. And then if you're defending your front, then you can use the Widow Mines to put them in the drop locations to kind of
keep them alive and just kind of do that, use that to move around and everything.
Yeah, maybe you can even use them to so let's say you take this base. Well, you can drop a Widow Mine here, and you can drop like a Widow Mine here, and you can see 2 attack paths you can take, and then you just have something out here standing, or your army in position there, and you can reposition easily. So the Widow Mines it's kind of like to shut down, not to shut down maybe, but like you can use them for sight. You can use them to deal some damage to drops. You don't really want to lose them. You don't have to drop them. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. And you can see, as I said, the 3rd command center shortly after you get your 2nd if you feel safe. I feel safe. And then you can either go up to 3 factories and an armory, which is a bit more economical. It's a lot less taxing. You're not maxing out everything you can, so it'll be faster to get a base, like another expo, and then you grab your 4th and 5th factory, or even your 6th when you're on 3 or 4 bases. So you can make a choice. I prefer to go for 3 factory, 2 tech lab, 1 reactor, and an armory. All about I drop the other 2 factories all about the same time. And then once I have 2 siege tanks and 2 hellbats and 2 Vikings making at the same time, then I drop my 4th factory while I get my +1 upgrade. And then when my +1 upgrade is about to finish, I like to go for dual upgrades.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot of information. Okay, so basically, um, go up to go up to 2 starports with Vikings, um, and you said 6 factories on 3 base.
3 base, you most likely want to say closer to 4 or 5.
4 or 5, okay.
With like 3 tech labs, 2 reactors. You want 1 more tech lab than a reactor. I used to go 4 tech lab, 1 reactor, and then just dump the extra minerals into expansions and missile turrets, and dump all my gas into siege tanks. I'm not 100% sure which I feel is better against mech, but I know that against bio, the extra Hellbats help a lot.
Okay, so 3 tech labs, 2 reactor, 2 starports.
Well, 1 starport until you need another one later on.
Okay. So 5 and 1 general rule.
Yeah.
3 base.
The only reason I went for 4 is because my economy was a lot better than his here.
Right. So you can just make mules instead of making SCVs. I got you. Oh, he's getting desperate, yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of the general of it. If you see battle cruisers and you don't see many Ravens, you can go Widowmine, Thor, Viking. If you see, you kind of want to create like a siege line of maybe like a sensor tower. So if you're playing a bio player, you can take this expansion and then just place your tanks in this row. And you can cover both bases and then just have missile turrets where you need them in this area. And you don't need them anywhere else, just to shut down a drop in your main base. And then have some Vikings scattered out, and you would put a missile turret on the top left portion of the base where I'm at, and then I'm in a sensor tower, and then you would drop a sensor tower kind of by your third. So you would have, like, I'm gonna ping it real fast because I know there's a lot of pings. So you put 1 there, and then you put 1 there, or sensor tower, and you can see a huge chunk.
Right, you can see the drops coming, and you can see the, sort of like the attack path between the for the potential 4th.
Yep. And keeping a Widow Mine in your main base by the missile turrets you use to help prevent drops, the Widow Mines will help a lot in that aspect as well.
Right.
Which you can keep alive from the start. I'm actually super excited and kind of want to try that myself again, because now I remember the build. So...
Okay.
That's kind of the gist of TVT. You survive the mid game, and the late game is, the later on it goes. Ravens are really good. They're kind of an imbu unit. So, Raven Viking Siege Tank is superior pretty much to almost everything.
Raven Viking Siege Tank. That is a lot of gas.
That is a lot of gas. It takes a long time to get up to there. 4 or 5 bases where you can really pump it out. And then you dump your minerals and missile turrets and expansions. So, yeah, that's kind of TVT in a nutshell.
Okay.
We'll spend the rest of the time on TVZ. Sound good?
That sounds great.
We'll just pick this one. This is at the top of my list. Oh, I remember this. I trolled this guy. We faced the game right before this. So we had a game right before here, and we're kind of trolling back and forth.
Okay.
So, this may look a little BM, but it's not.
No, I understand.
It is BMBO. So, my opener is relatively safe against almost anything the Zerg player can throw at you. You learn it, you memorize it, and you're going to be pretty safe. The only thing that can really break it at the start is... Well, to be honest, if you're doing it right, there's nothing that can break you at the start. That's why I made it like this.
With 1 base mutas or some crap.
Bailing Bus can surprise you. Nothing should be able to kill you as long as you scout it or see it temporarily in advance. So you gotta scout around with the... So, like, for example, at 5 minutes and 30 seconds is the first time they can really hit your base if they don't do a 1 base. So, like, if they do a 6 pool, they're going to be at your base in a few seconds. And you just rally the other Marine inside. You don't drop your command center. The 6 pool will arrive before you have a chance to drop your command center at higher levels. You know, you just cancel it if it shows up, especially if it's there with drones. Don't worry about it. Just cancel. Build it inside your base. Wall off repair. Not a problem. Yeah. So... You built your gas at 15, you get your command center as soon as you can with your first 400 minerals after the 2 marines. Then you make your reactor, and you continue SCV production. Shortly after you make your reactor, you have to send an SCV out front to make the bunker. The bunker is very important. You want it to be up relatively soon, preferably before the 2 marines reach 2 zerglings reach your base. 2 or 3 zerglings will. Very soon. You keep making marines 2 at a time. Factory at 100 gas.
Similar to what I'm currently doing.
Good. Very good. Factory at 100 gas, and the SCV that makes your factory will be making your 3rd base.
Okay, I didn't know that, but got you.
And then you want to make, after you start your 3rd command center, you want to start the tech lab, and you want to build a supply depot at your front, right next to the bunker, so zerglings have less service space. If zerglings do come up, you can see that I have rallied out to my 2nd command center before I got my gas, and this is because I'm not getting the gas yet, but I have enough SCVs to surround the bunker.
Got it.
So here's another depot and a 2nd on the other side of the bunker for less space. I guess I don't do that this game. You don't need to do any type of timing pushes like I do. Don't worry about it. Just use the extra units to get your 3rd sooner.
Okay. He is really greedy right now.
Yeah, that's why I did this. But it's not a problem in your league.
Okay.
You'll just survive.
See this kind of crap.
I'm sure they spend more time attacking you than anything else.
They're really aggressive in the lower leagues.
So once you have your 3rd command center, your wall's kind of complete, you got plenty of minerals, you can throw down 3 more gases, and from there you can go up to 2 or 3 more factories. So your total count is 3 or 4 with an armory. So I drop 4 normally.
Right.
And then I go for the armory. Pretty soon, I think I forget a little bit this game because of the attack. I was trying to position. There's the armory. Spends a lot of resources trying to break this.
Yeah, for 1 tank and like 8 marines.
Yeah, we cause them to make a lot of units, so that's nice. Once you build your armory, shortly later you want to build your engineering bay. Your engineering bay always has to be, if he's on 2 bases, before 8 minutes and 45 seconds. If he's on 1 base, you want it to be... if he's on 3 base, then it can be by 9 minutes 45 seconds. I start the building armor, but I did a mistake in this build, which I didn't realize I've been doing for the past few TVZs, that I corrected myself with. I forgot a rule, which is my 3rd orbital command instead cannot be an orbital, it has to be a planetary fortress, which is the same time I start building armor.
Okay, so you gotta, lift it off and then drop it and then planetary instead of orbital in-house.
Yeah, and then I build, right after the one that I'm going to make a planetary, I build another command center right next to it, and that one's going to be the orbital, so I'm going to be on 3 pretty safe base with a planetary fortress and building armor around the same time any massive attack can come.
Okay.
From here, you want to go up to, you have 1 reactor, so you want 2 tech lab, 1 reactor, and 1 can be, add-on-less. You don't have to make Hellions. If he makes a lot of Zerglings, make Hellions. You do want a Thor. After you've made a total of 3 siege tanks-ish, you want a Thor almost right away. At least 1, and 1 missile turret in each mineral line. Or, around the edges of your map.
Bermudas and stuff.
Yeah. You want at least 1 so you can't be caught off and just auto-lose.
This is really cool, this, outside thing.
Oh, with the bunker and the supply depots?
Yeah.
That will help you a lot against many cheeses. Or attacks, in general.
And the supply depots are there to prevent more, the supply depots look like they're there to take less surface area?
Yeah. Force him to funnel him. I should do it in TVP a lot more, to be honest with you. I've been thinking about doing that a lot, but I keep forgetting. There's the 3rd command center, or the 4th, really late. See, that one's going to be an orbital as well, but I kept forgetting to make this one a planetary. But it ends up okay in this game. So, it's the same structure kind of thing. So, on 3 bases, you want 6 factories, and you don't need the starport yet, unless you see swarm hosts or broodlords, then you want starports.
I've been doing the couple of TVZs that I ended up doing. I countered the broodlords with a lot of widow mines, like you were suggesting.
It's very possible to do that when they're at a low number. The higher number they are, the much more difficult it is.
Oh yeah, Oh yeah.
So what I would recommend is that the more Brood Lords they have, the better Thor Hellbat is with Viking Raven. Raven ultimately is your god comp because they're the most imbalanced unit for Terran right now. They're pretty damn strong.
So which one now?
The Raven.
Yeah.
They're pretty effective.
I do.
For mech, anyway.
Screw around in random team games with Mass Raven and all that.
Yeah. So
Trying to learn.
you want to. So when you scout Swarm Host, you want to keep about a few less siege tanks than the Swarm Host, but you can't let it get out of control. You can dump the rest of the gas into things like Medevac. You can get Ravens, or you can get Blue Flame Hellions, or you can do a combination of the two. Probably if you go with the Raven, you can't go with the Medevac or the Blue Flame. I mean, if you get the Raven, you can't get... so you can do a combination of the two, but you can't get the Raven and the Medevac. It's too much gas.
Okay.
You have to have a mineral dump. So if you get the Medevacs, you just drop around when they have Swarm Hosts, in places where they're not defending, and you can use the Blue Flame Hellions, and you get Transformation Servos, and you just run around. You already have Building Armor, so Planetary Fortresses Expos can hold off quite a while.
And then you just go harass with the Hellions.
Yeah, you move around, harass with the Hellions, you can drop Thors, you can drop Hellbats, and just kind of keep them busy. It'll make a lot of the Zergs fall apart if you just stay back and drop like 6 Hellbats on the next bow. If they don't, if they're just getting it up, a lot of Zergs in the lower leagues will have a lot of spines. Don't drop too much where there are too many spines. Just go to another place. It doesn't really matter.
So my goal when I see Swarm Hosts is to not freak out, but to make siege tanks to hold off the Swarm Host members, and then just start dropping like crazy.
Yeah, match the Swarm Host. You can scan once in a while, see how many he has, match about the same amount of siege tanks, and then just make Hellions. Yeah. And then make the same amount of Hellions. And then make Hellions and Medevacs. You don't really want more to make... don't really want to make more than 6 to 8 Medevacs, because you're going to want your Raven protection pretty soon, but you can delay him a lot with Medevacs, or flat out kill him. And then you can go like Thor Hellbat Medevac if he has a low number of Brood Lords. But then the higher number of Brood Lords, the more Ravens you want. And the higher Corruptor count, the more Thor Hellbat you want. Because then Ravens become a little bit less useful until you have a critical mass of them.
Okay.
If you go see like Roach Hydra Viper, Widow Mine's amazing. So if you see so the Hellbat is useful against Brood Lords, Swarm Hosts, Zerglings.
Hellbats just rip through locusts.
Yeah, they're pretty good against them.
I did not realize they were that good.
They're useful for when you're trying to buy time.
Wow.
So that's why when you want the Hellbats for siege tanks, you want against like a heavy ground compositions. Against ultras, you don't want to siege them.
Right.
Widow Mines are for things that aren't like inexpensive, so you don't really want Widow Mines for locusts. You don't want them for Zerglings. You don't want them for Broodlings. Or in Festers, unless you split them up. And I think that's about it.
Alright, so give me that last piece one more time.
So you want Widow Mines for things that have a hard time splitting up. So you don't want them against things like Zerglings, Broodlings, and Locusts. You don't really want too many against Banelings either, unless you split them up in advance. You can have a few. Split up ahead of your army, so that you can use them to hit the Banelings. But mostly if you're facing like Baneling, Zergling, Hellbat Siege Tank is probably your best bet. Hellbat Thor, if they go for Mutalisks. Hellbat Thor is really robust against Zergling, Muta, Baneling. And then you can have just a few Widow Mines that you can keep in the back, and if he has a lot of Mutas and he flies over your Thors, then you burrow the Widow Mines and...
Yeah, and then just keep maybe like a couple Medevacs for the...
Yeah.
Like 1 or 2 Medevacs for the... Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of what TVZ is all about. You don't need to know too much about a lot of the early things why the build works. Because it hard counters so many things for you. Like example, at about 6 minutes, at about this time there can be a Speedling Zergling running at your front, and you have enough Marines to stop that.
So I die in TVZ almost exclusively to all-ins and cheeses, whether it's like the 830 Roach Baneling bust or like the Baneling a bus and the Zergling Speedling all in at like 5:30. And it's just there's so much cheese. It just makes me so freaking upset.
If you see a Baneling bus, so you should be able to see that there's no expansion. If there's no expansion, just build a bunker at the top of the ramp and build a bunker by your command center, and you hold it, no problem.
Right, right.
That's the, you'll pretty much just devour it there. And then for the Speedling run by at about 6 minutes and 7 seconds, it'll probably be a little bit delayed at the lower leagues. If you think it's going to come, just pull some SCVs, auto repair, get them near the bunker, and you'll have enough Marines to hold that. The higher your supply depots, there's no way in, you win. Even if he cracks your front, you have a siege tank that's close to finishing, as you can tell. You can just repair the wall, put the siege tank up top, and then just leapfrog your way down to an expansion. Once you have one siege tank, you can use Marines to draw the Zerglings to the siege tank, and then take your expo.
Right, okay.
And you said 8:30 for the Banelings. You can see, like, we have one siege tank. I sent it out, but you can see we have one, there's another, and it's about to be 8:30.
Oh, yeah.
If I was making another siege tank, I'd be on 3.
Now this would already probably destroy it.
Yeah, you probably won't even have to repair the bunker. You just target down not the roaches, but you target down the Banelings, because the Marines do okay damage against roaches who are not kiting them, and if there isn't a substantial amount, then the roaches will take splash damage from the siege tanks. Right. So you'll end up with about 3 siege tanks at the time that hits, and you will just auto win. That's game right there.
Do I just counterattack after that, or do I just keep macroing?
You can just keep macroing. He's invested so much. Really what you can do once that happens, you can drop down 2 command centers, and then, you take one, like you would make this one a planetary, and then you would make this one an orbital, and then, you don't have to worry about, or you can make, you can swap it around, it doesn't really matter. As long as you put supply depots here to kind of keep from Zergling run-bys, But then you can double expand and macro up and just roll them over in a few minutes. I wouldn't really suggest pushing out right after. Maybe when you're at like 150 supply, you'll probably be just out macroed him so much that he doesn't stand a chance.
Okay.
Especially if he goes Mutalisks, because once you scout that after a failed bust, you just go Thor Hellbat, and then once you're up to like 3 or 4 Thors, you take your Marines you already have and a few Widow Mines that you'll probably end up having. Like you can make 3 or 4 at the early stages. To secure your 3rd, and then you switch to Thor Hellbat when you scout it, which is about that's about the same time you scout it is when you're making is when you'll be at about 3 or 4 Widow Mines, and yeah, you can just crush them.
Yeah, that looks like that's about it. Yeah, very rarely do Zergs take it to the late game in the leagues that I'm in. It just seems like everybody just goes for like such cheese.
Well, the games I showed you, I like to focus on. So, my philosophy is I'm a bit of a ladder hero. I don't really have time for tournaments right now, so I dictate all of my strategies into surviving the majority of my games. And so, most of my builds will hard counter a lot of all-ins because I don't want to deal with them.
Yeah, I feel like I don't have time for that.
Yeah, and if you stop the all-in, you pretty much win, regardless of what you're doing.
As long as my macro is good.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So the 3 builds that I gave you it'll put it more so you have to focus less on the micro part. Not the micro part, less on the what do I build part, because you will hard counter a lot of things. You just gotta scout key things like is he going for Tempest, is he going for Colossi, is he going for Storm. That's pretty much what you scout on TVP. If you can get by without scouting anything else in that matchup at lower brackets. I mean, I have to look for a few more things like, is he doing his Zella Archon timing bust? But the macro for that, it doesn't really exist in lower leagues. You can just overwhelm it with Hellbat Siege Tank.
Right.
That's really not an issue at all. As long as you stick to what I told you, you should be able to just crush it.
What's, I guess a couple of questions I have is, what's the priority for scans over mules?
Scans over mules is when I scan when I have a feeling like you're missing something. I scan if his army too small. I scan sometimes to see if there's an expansion. I mule if I really need the money. Otherwise, I prefer scans. But in the early stages of the game, so before the 15-minute mark, I might spend 1 or 2 scans. And then the 15, and then about the 20 to 25 minute or 20-minute mark, and then after that, I'd say I spend a lot more on mules. On scans than mules. It's kind of even. Maybe favoring the mules a little bit, but I want to make sure I know when he's tech switching. I want to make sure what bases he does and doesn't have, and that can also be solved by units. Maybe a medevac flying overhead, scanning his army composition so I know what's there and what to build against it.
Okay.
Scanning for the spire. That's also important.
So spire, and then finding out what tech path the Protoss is doing.
Yeah. If they're really aggressive at the start, regardless of the race, scan their expo. Like if they don't start off with an expo, regardless of the race, scan their expo when you feel like you can take yours, just to see if they have theirs. Because if they have theirs, you most likely can, and if they don't, you most likely can't without playing it super safe.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons why I would spend a scan before 15 minutes.
Just to kind of see what's going on if I don't know what's going on.
Yep.
I guess. Okay. All right. Yeah. No, that clears up a lot of things. I was just kind of lost in terms of how many production facilities, because they have the general rule for Ling Bang Ling Muta, but it's so hard to just keep playing with the advice is just build more Marines and just have better micro of the Marines, and I don't really think that's a good answer. I feel like if this is a strategy game, I should be able to win based on how smart I am. If I get into position better, I don't know. Yeah. I'm of that opinion, so this is going to help a lot.
It's like so for every base you can afford 2 factories without being all in. 1 base, okay. 2 factories, 2 base, 4 factories, 3 base, 6 factories. 4 base you can go up to 8 factories. I do not recommend it. I'd rather you spend that other stuff on. In TVZ it's okay. I do that in TVZ all the time. But in the other matchups you want to spend it on maybe another starport or some ghosts. But ultimately you want 3 production structures at the most per base.
So just basically for Zerg and Terran, the more specialty units probably a lot more Vikings for the siege tank site and the shoot down medevacs, and ghosts for the shields on the Protoss and stuff like that.
If you're facing mech, you want air dominance and ground dominance, so maybe an extra starport. If you're facing Protoss, you want EMPs.
Right.
But also, if you're playing against Bio, you want more kind of ground forces with a few Vikings and a few medevacs, so you can drop medevacs on top of his tanks maybe, or you can drop in his mineral line, few Vikings to kill the medevacs, and then you want more army, so you can't be overwhelmed. So okay. 1 starport is fine against Bio until they make a tech switch to air. And then you kind of focus most of your resources into minerals, into turrets, siege tanks, and hellbats. And then you always want at least 1 Thor in your army in case you get a Banshee, so you can scan and then kill the Banshee.
Right, okay.
Unless you have air control, then you don't need the Thor.
So keep Thors away unless...
he has air control.
Right, okay. I would not have done that, so very little Thors in the composition against Terran.
You can go up to 3 Thors, I would say almost at the most, against Terran, and you can use them to help break siege lines by walking them in first.
Okay. So if I'm contained, make Thors or something?
It's probably better to try to move out slowly and drop them.
Got it.
If you're contained.
Hellbats and stuff.
Yeah, hurt his economy, because odds are he's rallying everything over.
Okay. Hurts.
Do you have any last questions before we call this to a close?
No, that's. I think you covered a lot of information. I didn't really gather all of it, but I'll be able to watch it again and try to soak in more information. But there was a lot of if-thens, and it's just too much for me to absorb it at all at one time. But no, have you always done this? I guess.
Mech?
Yeah.
In StarCraft 1, I played a lot of random, and I favored random and I favored mech, so I did that a lot, and I got a pretty okay rating on the ladder systems over there. Like, I co-op in the actual ladder system before they removed it for Brood War and the original StarCraft, and then I kind of faltered away from that and went into kind of like arcade maps. But not really. They were like still melee things, but they weren't for ladder or anything like that. But I've been playing Brood War since 1999 for StarCraft. And then in Wings of Liberty, I started off as a Terran player, and I really liked Marin Marauder from the looks of it, and I really loved the Zergs too, though. I loved everything. So I started off kind of random, and I was always the highest league as random, but the game just came out, so the cheeses did work really well, and I loved cheesing. So I went from random all the way until Grandmaster was released, and then I got Grandmaster as random. I decided to pick a race. I picked Terran, and I got Grandmaster as Terran, as Bio, and then I was like, okay, well, I mixed in mech, but I was still kind of dabbling with it. I played a lot with it in like Terran against Terran, and before the tank nerfs, which were introduced, and in Wings of Liberty in the early beta. And then I went straight from that into pretty much mech, and then sometimes bio, just very rarely bio, just to keep myself up with it, in case I need to pull it out.
Right. I guess my last question would be, well, I guess I have two quick questions. Is there any cheeses that mech can do?
Yes. The biggest mech cheeses you can do is like abuse pantries and drops, okay? And then you can go, if you don't want to, that's more like harass style. And then if you don't want to do that, you can just skip the third. Always skip the third. It's a 2-base timing push, or you can skip the fourth. But most likely your best bet is to skip the third. And so what you will do is you will open up like, you will just do your normal build, except for without a third base, and then once you have 3 in each gas and 16 mining, you just stop making workers at all, just entirely, and you just drop down like an extra factory or two as if you're on a 3-base economy. So the 3-base economy, the reason why you can afford so much, or the reason why you need it and to afford so much, is because you're not only making SCVs, you're making supply depots, you're making you need more money than you can produce so that you can get more bases and you can get more defensive structures. But if you take away the need for more SCVs at an early game, you find yourself all of a sudden exploding with minerals. So you can go for like 4 factories, 2 tech labs, 2 reactors, and then Vikings. And then you just throw down an extra 1 or 2 factories, and then you just pump out a crap ton of units. You like 3 tech labs, 3 reactors, and Vikings, and you just dominate and overwhelm them.
Okay.
And then if they don't say come in, you get them.
Question about you personally.
Yep.
God, I feel stupid. What? I'll probably just Skype it to you. It was something relevant, but I don't know. Forgot it. Must have skipped my mind.
Okay.
Right. Well, I really appreciate it.
No problem. I will give you the link to the YouTube that it's going to be on right as I start uploading it, and it'll take about an hour and a half, I think.
That's fine.
For it to be ready, and then you can always look through it and through different parts.
Okay.
Sound good?
That sounds great, man.
It was a pleasure meeting you, Caleb. I hope this helps a lot.
What is your name?
Jeffrey.
Or would you prefer? I'm sorry?
It's Jeffrey.
Jeff. Okay.
Jeffrey, AJ, HTOMario.
Just call you Mario.
Mario works.
Alright.
Alright.
Thanks, man.
No problem. You have a good day.
Do the same.